Welcome to the Vault, where Central Illinois' best-kept stories are held.
Welcome into the Vault, John. Why don't you tell us who you are and what you do, and we'll get a little bit of background on you.
Sounds great. Good to be with you, gentlemen. My name is John Stremsterfer. Professionally, I'm the president and CEO of the Community Foundation for the Land of Lincoln. Happy to be here today. I am a lifelong resident of Springfield, born and raised, and a little bit of milestone for me. I just turned 50 last week.
Nice.
So I'm feeling a little old.
Yeah. I love it. That's a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a month removed from turning 30, and my back has hurt every day since.
Yeah, so, it doesn't get better.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
I just turned 41. We have all the milestones going on here.
41, is that a big one?
Yeah.
40 was bad. 41's like, I'm committed to 40
I love
now.
it.
Yeah.
I love it.
We need a 60-year-old and a 70-year-old to just go around the table
right,
like that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about how terrible you feel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you touched on the foundation.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what you guys do over there.
Sure.
What you're working on.
So the Community Foundation, we are one of about 700 or 800 community foundations around the country.
Okay.
And they're really these, I think, beautiful organizations. They're not-for-profit. We are a not-for-profit public charity built of hundreds of local people and their generosity creating funds, as we call them. So our Community Foundation has over 300 charitable funds that we administer for a wide variety of purposes. We serve 8 counties, basically Sangamon and surrounding counties. And so the donors who set up these funds are really just generous people. And they come to us, we have a conversation with them, we find out what they care about charitably, and then we create a fund kind of designed for their purposes. So for example, if you care about the environment or the arts or education, you name it, you can create a charitable fund for purposes like that. Oftentimes, the families who create these have their family name on them, whatever that may be, or a business could create a fund at the Community Foundation, name it. We get some people who are very creative with what they want to call their funds too, so it's always appropriate, nothing inappropriate. But as you can imagine, we're working with really generous people who are wonderful human beings that want to do good in their local community. Then on the flip side of that, we give away money all the time. So we're constantly granting out money to local charitable causes in the 8 counties that we serve. So we kind of see both sides of this, beautiful coin of philanthropy and generosity and the good works that are being done with the grants that go out.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Is 300 a lot for somebody that serves 8 counties and population in the counties that you're serving?
It's never enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We've been at this for about 21 years now.
Wow.
We were founded in 2002 as a community foundation.
Okay.
Though our history goes back 100 years. This is the 100th anniversary of our predecessor organization, the Sangamon County Foundation.
Oh.
But it was pretty dormant for nearly 80 years. And then in 2002, they changed from a private foundation to a community foundation. I was hired as the first employee in 2003.
Nice.
As I'm already aged myself here at age 50. I was 28 when I started, and they kind of handed me a box and said, okay, let's do this. And we've been active ever since. So to your question, we're not atypical the way we've grown, being over 300 funds created over a couple of decades. That's pretty much in line with what you see in our industry of growth patterns. The assets of the Community Foundation today are around $80 million.
Okay.
And so we're largely an endowment-based form of philanthropy, meaning money stays there largely. We invest it, earnings from the money goes out in grants. So we're giving away millions of dollars a year into the community.
It's awesome.
But as I say, there's really never enough when you think of all the issues we need to address in the community. So the more we grow, hopefully the better off the not-for-profit sector will be in this neck of the woods.
Awesome.
Just to touch back real quick, what's the primary difference between a private fund and a community fund?
Well, private foundation has certain rules within the Treasury Code. I don't want to bore you all and your listeners to death here. But if you create a private foundation, you have a lot more control. You can control the investments, you control the board completely, and so it's kind of a private group of people, usually a family or an individual that creates a private foundation. A community foundation is a public charity. We use the term fund rather than foundation, when in essence you're creating basically the same type of thing, meaning you give money to a legal entity and then you give it away. Private foundation, you kind of control everything, but you have a lot more responsibility and work that goes with that. Creating a fund at a community foundation, you give away the money legally. It's owned by our legal entity, the community foundation, but then you can stay involved with the grants. So if you create what's called a donor advised fund, say you put $100,000 in there, and then you fill out a form, and you can give away $5,000 to your alma mater, your church, any not-for-profits you wish, without having to completely define the issue areas you want to support. So it also affords you a little better tax advantage depending on the type of gift and the assets of the people and their tax situation. We always say talk to your tax advisors and your attorneys on these things. But it's, for simplicity, so much simpler, in my experience, to have a fund at a community foundation than having your own private foundation. And you basically get as much control as you need, largely for what you want to do with your philanthropy. So it's a much more efficient way to set things up. And community foundations really started to explode in America in the 1990s, really because of donor advised funds and their popularity. So with that, community foundation field has just exploded over the last 20 or 30 years.
So once those funds are donated, does the owner still own them on paper, or does it become property of the foundation?
The latter. So once they give away the money, they have to give it away, and they give away control, a great deal of it when they do that. But so they don't have to worry about for their own taxes, except for when they make the gift that year, they can take the tax deduction.
Right, so it's a one-time gift.
It's a one-time thing. And then we invest it, and it grows all tax exempt because we're a public charity. So we provide reports to the donors on a quarterly, or they can log in monthly and look at their statements for their fund because they feel like it's theirs, though they don't legally own it.
Yeah.
So it does afford the donor to stay very involved with the giving if they wish to. Other people don't necessarily want to stay involved. They say, I want to create this fund for arts organizations. And then community foundation, you all take care of that. You figure it out. A lot of that kind of fund that we create is often a donor will set it up during their lifetime, but the money comes in upon death. So through their estate plan. So that's honestly in our business where the biggest dollars usually come from is when someone passes away and they could leave everything to philanthropy or to the community foundation. We just had our largest fund ever that came in last year from estate gift. We haven't gotten the last check yet. It'll be over $8 million fund in and of itself. So
that's awesome.
So you get to see that. We know of dozens and dozens, nearly 100 people now who have told us that we are in their estate plans. So we're at 80 million today. The next 80 will probably come much quicker, just because we know some of the size of some of those gifts that are 7 or 8 figure gifts that will be incredible resources for the community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How much of so the funds are coming from essentially 8 counties. Is the giving also going to those 8 counties more often than not?
Yeah, it all depends on how the donor sets up the fund. So they could say, hey, I want this to give to unrestricted purposes in Sangamon County or in the entire service area of the community foundation.
Okay.
One fund that we've talked about quite a bit over the last couple of years was created when the St. Joseph's home closed, the nursing home here in Springfield. And that was a group of sisters that own and operated that entity for a long time. And so when they closed it, they wanted to make sure the resources stayed in Springfield to support people, or at least in this region. Those sisters are out of Peoria, Illinois, is where they're headquartered. So that is for all 8 counties, and now it's a grant-making fund to help senior citizens issues in the community.
Very cool.
So it's a way to kind of preserve that legacy in the entire footprint of the community foundation, because that's really where they pulled people that were residents of the home. So it all depends on how people want to set it up.
Yeah, that makes sense. How much of your time spent as the president and CEO is spent accumulating funds or making connections with people, and then how much of that is you figuring out, we have this and we have to figure out where the grants are going to go?
Sure. You should probably ask my team.
Yeah.
They'd say I probably don't do much of any of that these days. It's a combination of all of the above.
Okay.
When I was first hired, I was a one-man shop, and then for many years just had a part-time assistant for the first 4 or 5 years. And so got to learn a lot about this business, and that was I love it all. It's the reality. I love the fundraising, or asset development is really what we call it, because we rarely ask people for money. We just kind of tell people what we do, and they establish these funds. On that, it's an interesting job when someone gives you thousands or even millions of dollars, and they thank you more than you thank them for that.
Right.
Because we're typically helping people do something they already were inclined to do, and hopefully make it an easier process for them and a good experience. So anyhow, I love the resource development side of it. To this day, it's still as exciting as it was on day one. And I like putting the puzzle together, figuring out what kind of fund they should have, and talking to them, getting to know that donor and what their values are, and then creating a fund that can accomplish what they want to do. On the grant making side, I'm equally excited and as involved, again, depending on what kind of fund it is. A lot of times the donor is the driver, because they stay involved and we create a vehicle for them. But for funds that are given to us, where our board, our committees, has latitude for figuring out how to give away the money, you can kind of use your creativity on that side as well. So that, I feel it's important to collaborate with direct service organizations to learn about what's going on as best we can all the time in the community, whether it's dealing with homelessness or healthcare, you name the issue area, to figure out how we best execute as a grant maker to have the most effective grants possible for a better community. And then I enjoy the management side. We have an incredible team. People I work with are amazing. There's 6 of us in total. We have some contract employees too. I love the business side of figuring out how we meet our budgets every year and get creative on that. It's really, to me, just a pleasure every day to come to work, honestly. I love every aspect of what we do. And I'm not just saying that.
Yeah, no, I believe it.
It really is.
Right.
I'm a lucky guy. I kind of fell into this job 21 years ago, and from day one, I knew it was a good place for me, and I can't even count on one hand how many times I didn't feel like going to work. And that's probably because I was just, I'm getting old. I get tired. But no, it's a great pleasure. I enjoy all the aspects of the work.
Yeah, you definitely have one of the coolest jobs for sure.
Not bad.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good gig. What'd you do before?
Right before the Community Foundation, I worked for UIS, for the U of I Foundation, raising money for the university here in Springfield. Prior to that, I worked for my high school alma mater, which was Ursuline Academy, which is now sadly closed here in Springfield, a small Catholic school on the north side of town. But before I got into fundraising and philanthropy, I worked for state government. I was a political science major at Illinois College, had a fellowship in the governor's office right out of school, the Dunn Fellowship, and then I stayed on for about a year as a legislative liaison for the Department of Corrections. So back when Jim Edgar was the governor. So anyhow, around that time I was volunteering at Ursuline, coaching basketball and alumni association, so I kind of got an interest in this as a line of work, because I certainly didn't go to school for...
that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
There isn't a lot of formal education for going into community foundations.
Got it.
Or even the not-for-profit sector in general, which is kind of interesting because it's such a diverse and rich sector. But I was going to go into government and, as a young, wide-eyed person, save the world and do good things. So I like to think that we're doing that from a different platform at the Community Foundation, and you don't have to get involved with politics, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that part would be nice.
Yeah.
What do you see, what's your outlook on the foundation and maybe as Springfield as a whole? What are some areas that you think we need to kind of focus more on, and where do you think we're headed?
Yeah, well, for the Community Foundation, right now, we're just trying to figure out all the time how to manage our growth, because we're growing in really leaps and bounds over the last 4 or 5 years. We probably doubled in assets over the last 4 or 5 years. So managing that is always something we are mindful of, and when do we add another person in the office to help facilitate all this incredible activity. So that's exciting. If that's our biggest problem, it's a good problem to have, is managing growth. As you gentlemen, I'm sure, know from banking and the organizations that you lend money to, you want to see that, right? You want to see that growth. As far as the community issues, podcast probably isn't long enough for us to go through them all. But a way that we tried to help focus not only our work, but hopefully rally focus for the entire community was through an effort we instigated a few years ago called the Next 10.
Yeah, right.
Which was an idea that came out of our last strategic plan, which we approved in late 2019 and started to implement early 2020, right before the world changed with COVID. But then during 2020, after the pandemic hit and everybody was kind of isolated, we put an online website portal on this website together so you could submit ideas for a better community. That visioning project became known as the Next 10 with an original thought, let's get at least top 10 ideas we want to focus on. In 2021, with the assistance of a great group of volunteers on a steering committee, we released the Next 10 report, which really was 10 categories of ideas. I think it ended up being 27 projects. So my joke is we count 10 like the Big Ten counts as conference members.
They're getting close to 27 themselves.
Seriously, 18 I think they're going to do this year. So that has given us a lot of organizational focus on what we should prioritize as far as our grant making, but also our power of collaboration. I think is a really interesting thing that community foundations have, kind of a superpower there, because we're these non-political organizations that are built through community philanthropy. I think we just have a little different voice in the community to bring people together. And the vast nature of what community foundations can do, I think, can only be done in government often when you think of issue areas, because we're not limited to just social services or just arts or whatever. It can be anything charitable, which is similar to what a government would do. But again, we don't nearly have the abilities that government does, of course, but we do have some flexibility, and we can be a little more nimble and sometimes be a little more assertive for what we feel is the right thing to do in a community where we don't have to worry about politics or partisanship in ways. Just how do we come together over issues? So that's where the Next 10 was really for us a way to try to rally support for big projects. Now the projects that made it in that report had to have certain attributes, or we decided that they wouldn't go in the report. And the number one thing was a champion for the project, a group, an organization, a group of people that would say, we want to take responsibility for this project. Second thing was had to have some kind of resources, whether it be human capital or actual money behind it, because the reality is, if you have a good idea, and even if you have somebody that wants to support it, unless you have resources, it's going to be difficult to implement it. And we were kind of anxious. We wanted to see things start in a short period of time, not be 10 years from now, but in the next 3 or 4 years, what can we get moving or complete? And so I think we've been largely successful with that here now into year 3 after the report was issued. One example that I think is just a great example, I use it all the time, is the Pillsbury Project, where just some caring individuals came together. They created a legal entity. The Community Foundation made a pretty modest contribution before they even had their final approval from the IRS. I think it was around $18,000 grant to help do their first environmental study, which was required to get the property transferred to them. And then groups that I know you've probably talked to, the Growth Alliance, come in with more money, and then the city of Springfield with huge commitments, the state of Illinois, the federal government, they're piling millions of dollars now
That's awesome.
to clear up that property, which is a really important thing for the community, because it's sat idle and decaying for 2 decades. And now they're making headway. And I think a lot of people in the Next 10, the citizens said, hey, we need to do something with Pillsbury. Fortunately, people were working on it. We kind of caught that wave. And
Nice.
so it shows to me the power of community and what you can do. And then also to have that strong champion, to have collaborative partners in both the private and governmental sectors get behind it, you can really make headway. So that is just one of many examples from that Next 10 that I think are pretty exciting.
Do you have some others that are down the road that you're excited about that haven't maybe started yet?
Yeah. Well, one that I'm really excited about, and we highlighted at our Young Philanthropists group, which I know you guys have been made aware of. It's a whole other thing we could talk about, but we invited Mayor Busher out, and she was unable to come at that event, but her chief of staff, Mike Disco, came to an event for our first Young Philanthropist event this year at the Beach House. And so that was something that, honestly, and I always like to think I'm a pretty smart guy, I know what's going on. But when people submitted ideas in the next 10, a lot of the discussion was about activating Lake Springfield and having more public access, and specifically the Beach House. And then Mayor Busher, I was very excited to see when she was running for office, made that a real critical part of her platform. And so much so where she paid for drawings to be done. And Mike Disco presented those to our YP group just about a month ago. So I think that's one. I think the city is trying to figure it out with all levels of government, maybe especially in Illinois. Money is an important thing, and how do you finance it?
Yeah.
But I remember as a kid going to the Beach House and swimming out at Lake Springfield, and it was active all summer long, and it just has been dormant here for quite a few years.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful facility.
It really is.
And if it can be livened up, I'm very excited for that. So I'm excited to know that Mayor Busher's administration has prioritized that. And
that's really cool.
I don't think they've figured out exactly how to finance it yet, but I know they're looking for funding, and that'd be exciting.
Right. Yeah. It'd be very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Young Philanthropist group is a really cool group. Actually, when I moved back to Springfield and started trying to figure out what things to get involved in, it was the first thing that came up.
Cool.
Which was really cool, and kind of did some digging to kind of find out what it was that you guys are doing. So, would you mind highlighting the Young Philanthropist group and the work you guys are doing?
That was an effort that we, like most of our good ideas, we stole from another community foundation.
Classic.
Where you'll see these things in community foundations, what are called giving circles.
Okay.
And the Young Philanthropist is a giving circle, which the idea is maybe people who are, say, ages 21 to 45-ish, which now, as you can see, I'm falling out of that range. But
you still got time.
Yeah, a couple years.
But we like to say, if your check clears, you can be young forever.
Yeah, there you go.
So
that's good.
So for $150, or if it's a couple, $275 is what the contribution is. You can collectively throw into what we call the Future Fund to have this power of collective philanthropy through a giving circle model. So then we have social events that are very simple. It's not a big obligation at all as far as your time. If you want to come to a couple parties and be around like-minded people who want to give away money to help the community, you pitch money in every year, and we take a portion of that we give out immediately, 25% of whatever we raise that year. And now we have this Future Fund endowment. Again, we're kind of an endowment-based model that makes grants every year out for children's issues in the community. And then we literally ask members every year, if you're interested in serving on the grant committee, we put your name in a hat. We pull names randomly.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and so then those that serve on the committee, I think they learn a lot about the charitable community, and they get to review these applications, and then they work on behalf of all the members to make a grant each year. So it's a really cool group. Last year, they awarded a grant to the Springfield African American History Museum for summer programming for their summer camps.
Very cool.
And we were actually able to leverage and double that money through another grant we got at the Community Foundation to support African American history. So it was really kind of perfect, and it ended up being like $25,000, and more kids attended for a longer period of time. It was really cool. So anyhow, Young Philanthropists also serves the purpose of, I think, engaging younger people in the notion of community philanthropy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those folks who joined when we first started, 18, 19 years ago now, have gone on to set up their own fund at the Community Foundation or have served on our board.
That's awesome.
So it's also been a farm system for the Community Foundation in our larger efforts.
Right. I figured it would be.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. That's really cool.
And it's a lot of fun.
So you said something that kind of made me connect some dots here. It sounds like you guys are also leveraging your funds in collaboration with other groups or other grants to stretch those funds either farther to make the project even bigger.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And again, the next 10 kind of fueled all of that.
Right.
Another project that I think is a really exciting one that started with really strong results so far is led by Sangamon County government. It's our Farm to Table initiative, which it was a very bold, maybe the boldest of all ideas in the next 10, that our region would become the Farm to Table capital of the world. Not just the United States, not just the world.
I've heard about this, yeah.
And so that was, it was based on a reality that we have here of such rich land that we all live on in central Illinois, and how can we do more with that? Because so much of what's grown here is grain, beans, and corn. But as far as food for human consumption, we don't have as much.
Right.
How can we get more of that? Because everybody loves a good meal. We all want that at restaurants. So the strategy has been to try and find local school districts to start creating more purchasing power here at the schools for more institutional kitchens, to create a market demand for more local food. And Pawnee Schools, really to great success, was the first school district in Sangamon County to implement that here in the last year or so. And the county paid for the consultants that came in and worked with their cafeteria workers to help them really teach them how to cook from scratch. Because a lot of what happens in institutional kitchens, it's warming up frozen food, and it's not as healthy, and it's certainly not local. And that cafeteria out there is an amazing group of people, and they were all in, loved it, and I was so proud, I think, of what they've done. And the metrics have improved as far as how many students are now eating the school lunch rather than going home. Pawnee's a pretty small town. A lot of kids would leave campus and go home and eat. Now they're staying. Vending machines are not making as much money because the food's really good.
Wow.
And so they're not going and getting Cheetos and a soda.
Right.
And they're finding they're saving money. So if they buy fresh potatoes and have the equipment to cut them up and cook them, kids like them better, and it's cheaper than buying the frozen stuff and warming it up. So on all accounts, it's been incredibly well received so far. And I was just at a meeting recently where it looks like there's more school districts now that want to come on board.
Very cool.
So the idea there is create demand, so then there'll be more supply, and then you got to figure out how to process and deliver the food, which is no easy task. I've learned a lot. But to your question of the leverage, what I find so cool on this one is it was just ideas that came from the Next 10 processes saying, hey, we need more farming, we need to take advantage of what we have, we need to grow more foods for local consumption was kind of the basics. And then how do you make that into an actionable idea? It required Sangamon County saying, sure, we'll be the champion. But then you have one unit of government working with multiple other units of government in public school districts, and then really leveraging all of that. And then hopefully the state of Illinois, and through the federal USDA, where they run much of their grants through the Illinois Department of Ag, how do we then try to fit those grant opportunities in what we're trying to do locally? It's a puzzle, and you got to figure it out. But what we could do as an organization would be so modest on this issue, or maybe a few grants, a few $1,000 here and there. But then when you can fuel it, and the county is devoting hundreds of thousands of dollars to the training of cafeteria workers, they don't have to do that. That's pretty cool that they're willing to do that. And then as the enthusiasm and success builds, I see more money coming in as hopefully decision makers at the state and federal level see what we're doing locally. I think it could happen in a similar way to Pillsbury, where all of a sudden the money starts flowing. The leverage that's a great question, and I think that's where I've seen in my 2 decades now at the foundation, that's when we do our best work, when we're able to leverage others and inspire others to bring in more resources to make it a bigger and hopefully more sustainable project.
Yeah, it seems like instead of just throwing some money there and hoping that something happens with it, that it grows on its own, if you pool your resources together and get everybody to kind of rally around the project, it sounds like it would be a lot more successful.
Absolutely. And I don't know if people believe me when I say this, but the kind of caring matters more than the money. People that just care about it, and so more people are interested in stakeholders with the true stake in the project. If they're grant making from a state agency is doing it, a lot of those people who make those decisions live in Springfield with state capital.
Right.
They're going to care more. It's going to be more exciting, and they're going to talk to their friends when they're at a weekend barbecue or whatever. All that stuff. Weekend barbecue with locally raised pork. So all of that is powerful, and I just believe in this community aspect of what we do at the Community Foundation. It is more than the money. It's how do you get excitement, enthusiasm, and just people to kind of give a darn about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you hear statistics about kids having one meal a day, at school is probably their
Right.
big meal for the day. They might get a little bit at home, but in some of these poor school districts, that's really important. So the fact that it's something nutritious and they actually enjoy it, I could see people rallying behind that for sure.
Absolutely, that is such a key issue, but also the economic impact. As I'm sure you both know as well, the more we recycle money within our community, the more all ships can rise.
Right.
And so if you're buying from local farmers and you figure out processing and delivery here, those are jobs all along that literal food chain.
Yep.
And then you have, and the foods just taste better. It's better.
Yep.
So if we can figure this out with these larger commercial kitchens, and there's now some senior citizen facilities that are also looking to play a role in this. But you think of in the state of Illinois, if we can get the prison systems and public universities and or private groups too with big commercial kitchens, you can create scale, and then we're going to have more readily available food in our local grocery stores and restaurants. And so I can see how capitalism kicks in here if you can kind of juice it with a little social engineering that we're trying to do right now. This will be a huge economic driver for private companies and farmers and everyone to make a little money too.
Yeah, because scale is everything. Because I mean, I had that thought the other day. I was eating carrots at home and I looked at the bag and it said they were from California or something. It's like, man, these carrots had to travel such a long way.
Yeah,
but it is because scale is everything.
It's actually quite a bit better for the environment too when you can have the diversity of crops and different animals and things like that.
It's better for the soil. It's better for fuel consumption, all of it. But it's a huge system. The food system in America and the world. And
to convince a farmer to stop growing just corn and beans to having onions and potatoes and all sorts of things, that could be
and
to have
daunting. A buyer of so much of their crop that they've had for every year for 20, 30 years, and they know they're going to sell everything to that one buyer. It's definitely hard. There's a lot of convincing all the way across the board. For sure.
No doubt about it.
I'm just realizing how hard your job is now.
How fun it is.
Yeah. Well, it can be both. It can be fun and hard.
It is a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But on that one, I am so lucky. I get to learn about all this stuff.
Right.
They pay me to do this, so it's kind of nice. We give away money, and we get to learn about all these important issues, which I like to think I'm a curious-minded person, so that kind of satisfies my own intellectual curiosities every day. Because it could be on that issue. We've devoted so much time and resources to early childhood education. When you think of bang for your buck, there might not be anything better than that for humanity. Focusing on young people, especially in their earliest stages of life. I've learned so much on that topic. It's every single day at the Community Foundation. It feels like you're going to a master's class on whatever social issue it is. So, again, a pretty good gig.
What does that process look like when you identify an area of need that maybe you have a huge donor that says this is an issue area I want my money to be focused on, and you know nothing about it, let's say. How does that process start for you research-wise?
Well, you're right. Oftentimes it starts with that donor, where you kind of have to follow the money in a way.
Yeah.
Because we're probably not going to explore issue areas where we don't have any money to back it up. Except for maybe Next 10 was a little different, but that was the champions had some focus on those. But for us, traditionally, it's going to be often a donor or resources that have been given to us in some way. We have to figure out how to give away the money. And that's where, in our office, there's our chief program officer, Stacy Reed. And so often, my next up will be, hey, Stacy, we need to learn about this. How should we go about it? And oftentimes there'll be Stacy and I sometimes going out and talking to different not-for-profits that, based on their mission, can accomplish whatever it is we're hoping to do. So one, which I think is a really good story, a few years ago we had 2 donor-advised funds, the Summer Family Fund and the Jane and Paul Ford Family Fund. And Ken Summer, I don't know if you know Bruce Summer, his dad, and a lady named Jane Ford, whose husband had recently passed at that time, both approached us. I think it was like 2018 maybe, and they both wanted to help on the issue of homelessness, which was an area we hadn't honestly been that involved with because we didn't have a lot of donors focusing on that. And so Stacy Reed went out and started talking to all the various agencies, And then from there, kind of came back, and she had learned that all these agencies are under-resourced, overstressed with just dealing with a very challenging population of people, often with mental health or addiction issues. It's stressful, it's hard. And then they were supposed to come together and work collectively, almost as a volunteer for their collective work. They were just in a difficult position as agencies, because it's hard to kind of lift your head up and go out to a meeting and collaborate when you're just trying to get through your day.
Right.
That's a long story short. So anyhow, we thought if we could fund a coordinator for this group called the Continuum of Care, which is what the body is, that they all come together as individual agencies. They work together through the Continuum of Care. And then at that time, this is worked with the city of Springfield under the previous administration, or Mayor Langfelder's administration, and they put a little money in, and we put enough money on the table for the Continuum of Care to hire a coordinator. And then they chose, we did not influence that in any way, and they hired a guy named Josh Sabo, who's an incredible individual, and then he's been at it ever since, and it's a very long and winding story, but from there, the community did strategic planning, which was funded by the Community Foundation, the United Way, both hospitals, the medical school, the city, the county, and the Springfield Housing Authority. That's 8 funders.
Wow.
So that's powerful.
Yeah.
Again, it's the kind of caring as much as it is the money. The money was a lot of money to do that planning, but now everybody's leaning in and paying attention.
Yeah.
That resulted in a strategic plan, and then that resulted in a new entity called Heartland House being created, which is now able to go get even more money. And we went from the lowest ranked continuum of care in the state to now I think we're in the upper half or upper third.
Wow.
And we're getting more federal dollars. But more importantly, most importantly, more people are being housed than had been years ago. And I believe strongly it started with those 2 donors that came to us and said, hey, how do we do this?
Yeah.
Because without Josh Sabo's position being created, it would have been very difficult to focus on a strategic plan and then create this new entity, which now Josh is the CEO of. So it's really evolved. And again, government plays a role there, community members play a role.
Yeah.
It takes some time, but on that one, I just really admire Stacy, who I've worked with now for like 16 years. She's been with the foundation. People don't usually leave when they start the foundation.
Good.
Which
It's a
is
great
nice.
sign.
It's nice to have that consistency. And they haven't figured out how to get rid of me yet. I'm grateful for that. But anyhow, that was one that path I think is a really great story of how these donors who care can move, along that whole story there of how it can really start to make some headway. And we're not done. We have to keep working on that one for sure, because it's a huge societal issue.
I could see where going to an existing non-for-profit or something like that to get the help with that would be way easier than in this instance where you basically had to start this whole issue from scratch almost and hire somebody and find somebody who's right to do that. And I mean, thankfully there was a lot of entities involved in that, but
yeah, there were. And this has been something that I feel like I found myself in this weird place in my career of advocating for something that seems a little boring, and that's planning. And nobody likes to do strategic planning. It's, I got to go to retreat, put stickers on pieces of white paper. But it's so important because I'm a simple guy. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to get money.
Right.
If you don't get money, you can't do the stuff.
Yep.
So if you want to do the stuff, you need money. Not going to get it without a plan. That's the basics.
Yeah.
And that's true for people who serve on our Young Philanthropist Selection Committee for grant applicants. They'll look at them, and if a group has a plan, they're more likely to get the money to do whatever it is they want to do.
Yep.
And that's true with these huge funding sources from the government. It's equally true. And if you have a plan, you are going to have a much better shot at getting that money. So whether it's for homelessness or an economic development plan that we've helped fund with the Growth Alliance a few years ago that's resulted in millions of dollars now being had locally from the federal EDA. We just I was so excited to have this master plan done for the state fair.
Yeah.
Which first time that's ever happened in the history of the fair.
Which is wild.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
But now I think that's going to make better use of the capital money that's coming from the state. Thank God we have capital money now for Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be even better, more productive use of that because they have a plan.
Right.
And I think we're on the cusp of having a plan for the downtown and medical district. I hope that will be finalized here in the next couple of months.
Awesome.
And then I think we all pay attention in our own work at our individual organizations of how we apply for those grants and get more money to do the stuff.
Yeah.
It's something that I think is vastly important, and I do think the Next 10 spurred a lot of that. We are huge advocates for that at the Community Foundation. We're actually about ready to start our next round of organizational strategic planning.
Very cool.
Which I think will set us up for the next 5 years or so of doing all the stuff we do. So, yeah, it's so much easier if you can just give it to the group, but it's never easy. The groups who are successful usually have done a lot of hard work and thoughtful planning to have that planning meet an opportunity to get the resources they need to accomplish what they do. So
is the foundation also managing grant funds that you receive from the various grants that you apply for? I mean, are those funds coming in from the government to you folks, and then you're managing that also throughout time?
Not often, but sometimes if we're in a collaborative partnership, we may serve as a fiscal agent for a project, but that's rare. There's been some other opportunities, not lately, but earlier in my career, there was private foundations that worked on a national or statewide level that wanted to give away money locally, and the lead applicant had to be a community foundation. One was the Kellogg Foundation many years ago, had a program called Access to Recreation, which was to create recreational opportunities for people with disabilities. It was right around the time our community was talking about Southland Park. So we were able to leverage, I think it was maybe $400,000 that matched the public money that was pretty much already lined up for Southland. And then we have an endowment that stayed at the foundation that we give grants, pretty modest grants out every year for accessible recreation. So it depends. Most of what we administer really is built on local philanthropy of individuals who give us money, and then we in turn give it away. But when it makes sense, we will try to leverage that through how we can just kind of administer the work.
Yeah.
That's got to be so cool to look at some of the projects you've worked on over the course of 20 years and just admire the fact that either they exist or they're as successful as you guys kind of envision. That's going to be so cool.
When you're day to day and you're hit a bump in the road or you're frustrated because things aren't moving as fast, it's probably healthy to look back and see what you've accomplished. One of the ones that I'm personally just so proud of still is Innovate Springfield.
Yeah.
And that was created through the Community Foundation. We owned it for its first 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, our board, and I've been so lucky to have an incredible board of directors since the first day I was hired. And we're very strict on term limits. You serve 2 terms and you're done.
Yep.
That's good governance in my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
But yet each iteration of the board is as good as the last one in my experience. So it's a pretty brave thing I felt for our board about 10 years ago now when we said, well, hey, all these other towns have business incubators. Why don't we have one? How do we get moving on this? And then we decided to create it. And it was a subsidiary, or technically a supporting organization in not-for-profit terms that Innovate Springfield was built on. And then through some negotiations, which were pretty friendly and easy, we gave it to the university a few years ago.
Nice.
And so then it's really taken off into bigger and better things at Innovate Springfield. But for the Community Foundation, that probably wouldn't have happened. So that one is one that I just get so excited when I hear about the businesses that are getting support from Innovate Springfield, and hopefully are going to be employing more people and keeping more people local, retaining talent, all of that. And most people don't think of a business incubator when they think of a community foundation. It's something that's a little unique to our community foundation, but that one's really satisfying. It doesn't hurt that it's right across the street from my office,
Yeah,
so I see it all the time.
yeah,
You just look out the window
Right.
and
Yeah.
admire.
Yeah. Well, there, like you said at the beginning, where you've gotten some ideas from other community foundations, I'm sure there are some that said that's a great idea. We need to do
Yeah,
that
we
too.
have had quite a few phone calls
Yeah, I
from
believe
other
it.
community foundations, and it all sounds so simple when you reflect back, but there's a lot of hard work, a
Oh,
lot
I'm
of thoughtful
sure.
planning. But
I'm sure it's got to be.
yeah, but it's satisfying. Nothing in life, comes easy if it's worth it.
Right. You just, I was thinking back to what you said about you got to have a plan to get the money. You got to to be able to do the stuff, you got to have the money, or however
Right.
you worded that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and play that and tell
very-
that to all my customers. It's like, you sound like a banker when
You
you're
want to
saying
do
that.
the stuff?
Right,
Here's
right.
the
You got to have the
It's
plan.
very
and the
eloquent
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
good. It's good.
Well,
it's a
it's-
nice way to sum it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that on my wall somewhere so I can remember to say it to people when they come to me with no plan.
Instead of live, laugh, love.
Yeah,
Take that
yeah,
down in your
yes,
office now.
Correct. Yeah.
Plan money stuff.
Plan money stuff. There you go. That's good. That's
Like
good.
that.
You just made it. You made something
There you
simple
go.
even
There you
simpler.
go.
Nice. Well, anything you guys got coming up that you're really excited about, or what? Also, probably helpful to tell folks, the best place to keep in touch
Sure.
with what you guys are doing too.
Yeah, well, our website, and people just usually Google it these days, I think, but cfll.org is our website, and it's got a lot of information on there. They always give us a call. If people still, sometimes call people.
Yeah.
217-789-4431 is our number. And and I think what's so kind of interesting is, in my experience, anybody can get involved with their community foundation, whether it be ours or wherever they live. It doesn't necessarily have to be by giving away money, although we like that. It can be by serving on a committee or getting involved with the variety of projects we're involved with. I've yet to find someone who I think can't be involved with us in some way.
Right.
Whether they join Young Philanthropists or maybe they get involved with the Farm to Table initiative. Whatever it is, there's usually some connecting point to a community foundation. So if you're that kind of person and you want to get involved, just give us a call, look at our website, send us an email. Just lean in and try, and hopefully we can make that process a little easier. Or if we can't, we can put people in contact with a group in town that can. So we hope there's more people that want to engage all the time.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, John.
Hey,
I
thanks for
really
having me.
appreciate it.
this is fun.
All right.
That was great.
Well, thanks, guys.
No, thank you. I completely forgot. I should have talked about the next 10 from the get-go. I didn't even think about.
The Vault, where Central Illinois' best kept stories are held.